Hello, this is David, and in this video I'm going to be conducting a technical analysis of my 50 meters freestyle race from the South Yorkshire Masters Swimming Championships 2024. For those of you that watched the video of my race on competition weekend will know that I came in with a time of 28.80 seconds, constituting my worst performance in the 50 meters freestyle in 2024, and nearly a whole second above the personal best of 27.95 that I set just 2 weeks earlier at the English Masters National Short Course Championships 2024. So I just want to take a look at what happened in this race, why things went so badly wrong, with a view to understanding where I can improve in the future. So if you give this video a like, I would very much appreciate it. Follow and subscribe for more swimming content, and for help to swim faster on limited training time, head on over to westcough.com. But otherwise, without any further ado, let's dive right in to today's technical analysis. A decent reaction time from myself, but still failed to close my legs underwater. Maybe spend a little bit too long underwater and really struggled to get going down this first 25 meters, just not getting any traction. A decent tumble turn and underwaters, maybe spending a bit too long underwater, and then really going for it down this second 25. I'm really starting to catch up my competitors. However, I leave it a little bit too little, too late, and come in with a time of 28.8. So the biggest talking point for me in that 50 meters freestyle was the fact that I just didn't seem to get any traction whatsoever down that first 25. Despite giving it a lot of welly, I couldn't get that friction / catch with the water to really drive myself hard down the first 25, and that is where I lost the most amount of time against my competitors and against myself 2 weeks earlier in coming in with that 27.95. I don't really know the reason for this. I seem to default back to a stroke that feels more natural down the second 25, and that seemed to benefit me a little bit more because I started catching people up. However, down that first 25, I was really going for that new stroke that I thought helped to deliver that 27.95, trying to keep my hips nice and straight, not rotating in the water so much as you're supposed to do for a 50 meters freestyle, keeping that stroke rate nice and quick, a quick turnover there, and really trying to avoid gliding out with my arms. So when I enter the water with that hand, immediately pushing down from the water, because on my stroke I do have this habit of having my hand enter the water, gliding a little bit and not immediately initiating the catch, which for 50 meters freestyle you don't want at all. However, I thought I did that reasonably well, but it just meant that I didn't really get any traction with the water down this first 25, and as a result I lost a significant amount of time. So a little bit confused as to what happened there and why I really didn't get that nice feel of speed down that first 25, but it would just be a case of working on my top speed, really getting that to work and finding that nice balance between a high stroke rate, rotating the arms nice and quickly, versus getting that traction that I need to really propel myself down the pool, where ultimately you want a high as possible in both. So perhaps it was a case of I went too hard to try and get that high stroke rate, meaning that traction came down. So instead, what I probably need to do is readjust that balance ever so slightly back more in favour of getting that traction, which I believe I did down that second 25, and as a result gave me that speed that I needed to finish. So for me, that's the key talking point there. The second talking point for me from that race was the amount of time that I spent underwater. On both lengths, I seemed to get a decent distance underwater. However, that appeared to come at a time cost for me, where I didn't really get the balance right between staying underwater and getting a good distance underwater and the speed that you would want from those underwaters to try and bring down your time. I did this rather well at Masters Nationals, where I managed to get further underwater and that helped me out. However, for whatever reason, my underwater leg kicks just weren't as powerful, didn't get me as far as quickly through the water, and as a result it probably would have been beneficial for me to surface a little bit earlier in this race so that I could rely on my superior swim speed as opposed to my less good underwater kick speed. So one thing there, and I believe the reason why that was is because I moved house the previous day and therefore was absolutely knackered. I could feel it in my forearms that this was not going to be a very good time, and naturally is probably the key reason as to why the race didn't go anywhere near as well as I wanted it to, and therefore I lacked energy. I couldn't put that into my underwater leg kick, and as a result didn't get as far underwater as I would have otherwise wanted to as quickly down both lengths. So still tried to do the same amount of leg kicks and get the same distance underwater, but those leg kicks just weren't as powerful and therefore didn't have the speed that I really wanted from them. And in such instance, it would have been better for me to have surfaced and have used that superior swim speed to bring that time down. However, I think that's simply a point for the occasion, the circumstance of where I was so tired, my forearms were absolutely killing me from having carried so many heavy boxes, that it was just one of those swims. It was just going to be one of those swims. So nothing too bad about that. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be technically that much wrong about this race. I do feel the big thing was my fatigue and not getting that traction down the first 25, which again was probably due to said fatigue. The dive was decent, with the exception of the classic mistake that I make of not bringing my legs together when entering the water, something that comes up again and again in these analyses, and one that I know I have to get on top of, but because that's a staple, it didn't really account for why there was such a difference between that swim and the swim that I did 2 weeks prior. Decent reaction time off the blocks as well, so that was all good, and technically it looked decent. So I guess the key reason as to why the time wasn't so great was that fatigue, and as a result not getting that speed in my underwater leg kicks nor traction down the first 25 meters. So that is it for today's technical analysis. Thank you very much for watching. I've been David Westcough, and I'll see you again next time.
For more swimming content, follow and subscribe. To swim faster on limited training time, head to westcough.com. Otherwise, see you in the next episode.